A brilliant black girl named Maya Jackson scores the highest in her class's mathematics test, but her racist teacher refuses to believe it. He is certain she cheated, insisting that she couldn't have beaten her white classmates. Suddenly, a shocking truth is revealed, and what happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The classroom was dead silent. 17-year-old Maya Jackson sat at her desk, staring down at her graded test paper. A bright red 100% was marked at the top. She should have been smiling, proud of her hard work, but instead she felt the weight of every stare in the room. Mr. Leonard Grayson, the math teacher, stood at the front, his face twisted in disbelief. He tapped his marker against the whiteboard, shaking his head as if trying to wake himself up from a dream. "This," he pointed at Maya's paper, his voice tight, "is impossible." A few students snickered, while others watched in quiet confusion. Maya clenched her jaw. "What do you mean, impossible?" Grayson folded his arms. "No one in this class has ever scored a perfect 100% on my advanced test. And then you," he paused, glancing at her as though she didn't belong, "suddenly managed to do so by such a huge margin over the others." The room tensed. Maya felt her stomach drop. She knew what he was implying. She had always been one of the smartest students in school, yet Grayson never acknowledged her intelligence. He praised students like Logan Barrett and Macy Whitfield, the white kids from wealthy families, while barely looking at Maya when she raised her hand. She sat up straighter. "I studied hard for this test. You gave us the review sheet, and I—" Grayson cut in, his voice sharper now. "There's no way you got this score fairly." A gasp rippled through the class. Maya's heart pounded. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" Grayson didn't blink. "I am." Laughter erupted from Logan's side of the room. Macy covered her mouth, pretending to be shocked, but her smirk was obvious. Maya's fingers curled into fists. "That's not true," she shot back. "I've always been good at math. I worked for this." Grayson grabbed her test paper, waving it in the air. "Then explain how you solved these problems with such precision. Show me your notes." Maya swallowed hard. "I don't have them. I did most of the work in my head." Grayson scoffed. "Right. So you magically solved college-level calculus in your head? I don't think so." He turned to the class. "If she really understood this test, she should be able to rework these problems right now." Murmurs spread across the room. Some students looked at Maya with pity, while others, like Logan, smirked, leaning back in their chairs to enjoy the show. Maya's breath quickened. Her hands felt clammy. Grayson slammed a blank sheet of paper on her desk. "Go on. Let's see you do it again." She stared at the paper. She knew she could solve the equations again, but that wasn't the point. The point was that no one else was being treated like this. She lifted her chin. "Why don't you make Logan or Macy redo their answers?" Grayson's eyes flashed. "They didn't score a perfect 100%. You did." Maya's anger burned in her chest. She could feel the sting of humiliation crawling up her spine. "Maybe," she said slowly, "you just don't believe a black girl can be smarter than your favorite students." A heavy silence fell over the room. Grayson's jaw tightened. His face turned red. "Excuse me." "You heard me," Maya replied, her voice steady. "You've never liked me. You never called on me in class, never praised me when I answered correctly. But now that I've beaten everyone, suddenly I must be a cheater." A few students shifted in their seats. The tension was thick, suffocating. Grayson's lips curled into a sneer. "I don't care what nonsense you're spewing. I am reporting this to the principal." Until then, he yanked a test paper from her desk and crumpled it in his fist. "Your grade is invalid." Maya's stomach twisted. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "Life isn't fair," Grayson snapped. Just then, the classroom door swung open. Principal Marcus Dean, a tall, serious-looking black man in his late 50s, stepped inside. His sharp eyes scanned the room before settling on Grayson. "Mr. Grayson," he said, his deep voice calm but firm, "can I have a word?" Grayson stiffened. Sir, I was just... Dean held up a hand. Outside. Now. Grayson hesitated but followed. As soon as the door closed behind them, the room erupted into whispers. Logan chuckled under his breath. Guess your little act didn't work, Jackson. Maya ignored him, staring at the door. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Something felt off. Moments later, the door swung open again. This time, Principal Dean stepped inside alone. His expression was unreadable as he looked around the room. Finally, his gaze settled on Maya. Miss Jackson, he said, could you come with me? Maya's throat went dry. She grabbed her bag and stood up, her legs shaking slightly as she followed him out. As soon as they stepped into the hallway, she saw Ms. Perez, the school's guidance counselor, standing beside a laptop on a rolling cart. The screen was paused on a security camera feed. Dean turned to her. Do you know what this is? Maya nodded slowly. The classroom CCTV footage. Dean nodded. Then, without another word, he pressed play. What Maya saw made her breath hitch. On the screen, earlier that morning, before class even started, Grayson was at his desk flipping through the stack of graded tests. When he reached hers, he stared at it for a long time. His lips moved as if he was mumbling to himself. Then suddenly, he clenched his jaw and slammed the paper down. The footage continued, showing minutes before the test was returned. Grayson glanced around the empty classroom, pulled out his phone and typed something. Then he picked up Maya's test again, shaking his head and muttering under his breath. There's no way in hell she's that smart. Maya's fists clenched. Dean exhaled through his nose. We've been reviewing past footage too. It's not the first time he's done this. Maya's stomach turned. Ms. Perez looked at her gently. We're taking this very seriously. You are not in trouble, but Mr. Grayson is. At that moment, the classroom door burst open. Grayson stormed out, his face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. That footage doesn't mean anything. Dean turned to him. It means everything. Grayson scoffed. So what? You're going to believe this little girl over me? Dean's face darkened. No, I'm believing the evidence. He stepped forward. Mr. Grayson, you are officially suspended. Effective immediately. Grayson's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. You will collect your belongings and leave the premises. Now wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Maya watched as security officers appeared at the end of the hallway. Grayson looked around as if waiting for someone to defend him. No one did. Finally, with a furious huff, he turned and stomped away. Maya let out a shaky breath. Dean turned to her with a small smile. And you, Miss Jackson, have just earned yourself a full-ride scholarship. Her eyes widened. Wait, what? He nodded. We reached out to a few academic organizations. They were very impressed with your resilience and your talent. Maya's heart pounded. This wasn't justice. This was karma hitting hard. The news spread through Lincoln High School like wildfire. By the time the lunch bell rang, everyone was talking about Mr. Grayson's downfall. Some students were stunned, others whispered that they weren't surprised. But one thing was clear. Maya Jackson was no longer just another student. She was a name people wouldn't forget. Sitting at the cafeteria table, she scrolled through her phone. Her inbox flooded with messages. Congrats, girl. You showed him. You deserve that scholarship. Damn, I knew Grayson was racist, but this is wild. But not everyone was happy. Across the room, Logan Barrett and Macy Whitfield sat with their usual group, whispering and casting looks in Maya's direction. Finally, Logan stood up. This is... His voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough weight to silence the people at his table. Macy smirked. Biggest scam of the year? Maya sighed, putting her phone down. She wasn't in the mood for their nonsense, but Logan wasn't done. He turned toward her. Yo, Maya, he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Tell us, how does it feel to play the victim and get rewarded for it? Maya clenched her jaw. She heard a few gasps from students nearby. Excuse me, she said, turning to him. Logan shrugged. You heard me. You cheated. Grayson called you out, and instead of proving him wrong, you went crying to the principal like a little girl. A few of his friends chuckled. Macy crossed her arms, smirking. Maya pushed back her chair and stood. The only person who got exposed here was Grayson, she said coldly. I worked hard for that test, and I earned my grade. Just because you couldn't beat me doesn't mean I cheated. Logan's smirk twitched. Please, we all know you got lucky. Maya raised an eyebrow. Lucky? She took a step closer. Tell me, Logan, where was my luck when Grayson ignored me every time I raised my hand? Where was my luck when I had to study twice as hard to get noticed? She narrowed her eyes. Or are you just mad that a black girl outsmarted you? The cafeteria went dead silent. Logan's face burned red. You're pathetic, he muttered before storming off. Macy scoffed and followed. Maya let out a breath. A few students clapped. Others gave her nods of approval, but she didn't need their validation. She had already won. The next morning, Principal Dean stood in front of a packed auditorium. Students, teachers, and even a few parents sat in the audience waiting. Dean adjusted the microphone. Good morning, everyone. I won't take much of your time, but there is something that needs to be addressed. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Dean continued. Yesterday, Mr. Grayson was suspended after evidence confirmed a pattern of discrimination and bias in his classroom. Gasps rippled through the room. Dean's expression was firm. But this is bigger than one teacher. It's about the culture we allow in our schools. And let me be clear, Lincoln High will never be a place where students are judged by anything other than their abilities. Maya sat near the front, her heart pounding. Dean turned toward her. Miss Jackson, please stand. She hesitated, then slowly rose to her feet. Dean smiled. I want every student in this room to know Maya didn't just fight for herself. She fought for fairness, for respect, and because of her courage, real change is happening. Applause erupted. Maya's eyes stung, but she blinked back the emotion. For her excellence, resilience, and leadership, Dean continued, I'm proud to announce that she has received a full academic scholarship to any university of her choice. The cheers shook the auditorium. Students stood, some whistled. Even a few teachers wiped their eyes. Maya covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Dean smiled warmly. Congratulations, Miss Jackson. You've earned this. She looked around, taking it all in. The support, the justice, the undeniable truth. Grayson had tried to tear her down. Instead, he had built her up higher than she ever imagined. If you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button. And remember, never let anyone tell you what you're worth.